Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs postgame show podcast. Cubs lose to the Phillies 9-6 out in Philadelphia. Tomorrow's an off day, and then the final 3 games of the regular season. Thanks to everybody who's checking in on the live YouTube chat, which is the best way to enjoy the CHGO experience. Make sure you subscribe to the CHGO Sports YouTube page. Thumbs up, likes, all the positive reviews. We like that. Luke Stuckmeyer, Ryan Herrera, Cody Del Mendo, Sarah running the 1s and 2s, and a moment of silence for Joey.
Or went out.
And we move on.
Shout out Joey.
Joey's last day was
I
today.
accidentally tagged you twice in the tweet.
Now I got to talk twice as much?
Yeah.
I'm not getting paid for that.
I forgot to tag. I forgot to tag me.
At Ryan Herrera and
at Luke Stuckmeyer again. It's all right.
I made a sad video of Joey leaving. And I turned it into black and white, and then did like the "See You Again," the Wiz Khalifa song for the Fast at the Paul Walker Day.
I don't know that one, but I know Sarah McLachlan.
It's been a long day.
Oh, that's a good one too. Yeah.
Without you, my
do you know the Sarah McLachlan song?
And
I will remember you.
I will.
Yeah, the
remember
ASPCA
you.
commercials, man. Those are the saddest commercials.
Yeah.
No, that's not it.
Yeah.
Is that it? No, that's not
Shout
ASPCA.
out to Young Spathis,
as he moves on.
our
to a new
very
career.
first producer of CHGO Cubs.
That's right.
Yep.
Then he left us, and we replaced him with someone better, Sarah.
Sarah. Yeah.
Sorry, Joey.
Sorry, Joey.
You've been gone for at least 30 seconds. Already digging on you now. No, we'll miss him, and good luck to Joey.
Absolutely.
We are going to talk about Nico Hoerner's first 2-home-run game in his career. We are going to talk about Mr. Kevin Alcantara. We will talk about Javier Assad's rough final start of the season. We might talk a little baseball just in generic. I know a lot of you are sitting here as we're doing the show live, probably waiting for the White Sox history-making podcast, if that happens tonight. And if it does, Sean is dressed up in a suit for the first time in history.
History!
And by suit, I mean birthday suit. He's been watching it naked. He's been watching it completely naked over there. So if you want to see a podcast,
Yeah.
Sean is wearing his birthday suit.
Yeah. And Herb, he can't stop looking.
and he's that's history. All right.
Anyway.
So we'll get to Alcantara in a second. Where were you? This is what you'll say 5 years from now. Where were you the night Nico Hoerner hit 2 against the Phillies on the road and the Cubs still lost? Those were the closest fly balls to not home runs in the history of baseball, but they were.
Yeah.
What ballparks did they go out in?
I didn't look.
The first one.
Well, the second one was
I'm assuming the
identical,
next one was
right?
basically the same one, but it was 4 parks. Fenway Park, which is hilarious.
Get over the monster.
It got over
yeah.
the monster.
Short.
It was hit high.
Crawford
Minute
boxes.
Minute Maid Park.
Yep.
And then
Toronto
was one, and then obviously Citizens Bank Park.
but not
Wrigley was
Wrigley.
not.
Wouldn't
But
even
not
have made it
Wrigley.
out at Wrigley
Interesting.
Field.
The second one was Boston, Fenway, Great American Ballpark, Guaranteed Rate, Minute Maid Park, Citizens Bank
Oh,
Park,
so more.
Petco Park,
Huh,
and
didn't-
Wrigley Field.
I thought it was basically the same. I thought it was a
literally looked like
replay.
in the same
Seven.
spot.
I thought it was a replay.
Apparently not.
The same fan
Interesting.
reached into the little shrub to try and
It
get
went
it.
17 feet further.
17
Really?
feet
And maybe a little bit more.
It was further towards center. A little more
Yeah,
towards center.
Yeah.
Well, whatever.
First career multi-homer game for Nico Hoerner.
Good for him,
Our
man.
guy Dino says Nico increased his trade value. Great.
It's Dionysus.
Yeah.
Did you say Dino?
I said
I
this.
call him Dino now.
I said this on the couch for off-season podcasts. I'm setting the line at how many times we talk about trading Nico Hoerner at 30 and a half. Are we taking the over or are we taking the under?
30 and a half.
30 and a half. So at 30 and a half
Is it
shows.
just specifically mentioning it, or it has to be like we spend
talking about
good
it.
amount of
Like
time?
talking
We
about
spend
it.
more than
Yes.
5 minutes talking about it.
Yes.
Ooh.
Well, that only takes one of us to say something, so I'm going to go the over.
I'm gonna go under.
30?
I'm gonna say under.
If they trade him, we'll talk about it way more than that.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because it'll be like, well, they traded Hoerner, and now what are they going to do?
Let us know, chat. Are we going to talk about it more than 30 times this offseason?
The home run thing, though, it's one of those things that just, I know it's the bat speed and it's all those it's the science stuff. I just don't look at the man and say he can't hit more than 10 home runs.
Saying he can't, or
he can't.
You
I look
don't
at
say
him.
he can't.
I look at the guy with my eyes and say, "Well, he could hit 10 home runs."
Yeah.
And then all the science and math tells you he cannot. Which is, it's the frustrating part. But he is who he is. Mm-hmm. So he either fits your team the way he is as a guy who's going to hit 7 to 12 home runs a game or a year. I mean. Right? Yeah. That's probably where he really fits. 7 to 12. If we're lucky, some year he'd hit 15. But he's going to play great defense at second base. He's a pretty good base runner. You got to surround him with some sluggers. Yeah. And then he fits into the lineup. But if you're just going to surround him with guys that are similar players, then he becomes available to other teams.
Yeah, that's the issue. Is like, so you mentioned like his metrics, his barrel rate is in the first percent, like all the way at the bottom of the league. Hard hit rate, 8th percentile. Bat speed's 8th percentile. He's not like a.
I wouldn't have thought barrel rate was that low.
It's pretty low. Like it's. But the opposite part of that, he squares up the ball pretty well, 92nd percentile. His whiff rate, 99th percentile, like the lowest whiff rates of the league. And then his strikeout rate is 98th percentile. Like, he's a guy that puts the ball in play all the time. He doesn't swing and miss a lot. He doesn't strike out a lot. Like the balls, you could reasonably expect every time he goes up to the plate to put the ball in play. And I think part of doing that, it means you're sacrificing a little bit of power. I think I said it in the last offseason where I believed, he's another year older. He's like more into his prime, obviously continuing to fill out. I thought there was more power in there. I do still kind of feel that way. Like, I don't think, what's he got, 7 home runs on the year? Like, I don't think that's his, I don't even think 10 home runs is his. Like, we talked, 15 isn't that much more than 10, but another 5 home runs.
It feels like it this year, but I agree. Yeah. 15 homers doesn't seem like a big ask.
It doesn't seem like a big jump. I do still think he can. And, like, we were sitting on the couch talking about it. Cody brought up the point that Wrigley was a really rough hitter's ballpark. When you're playing half your games in a bad hitter's ballpark, that's probably going to affect you at least a little bit. So I don't know like how much the ballpark factor at Wrigley did have to do with Nico not reaching the 10 home run threshold, but it's just not slugging and power hitting is just not part of his game. I think I said it earlier. He's at like a 100 isolated power on the year, which is where he was at last season as well. He had a 129 in 2022. That's when he hit 10 home runs. That's also below league average. So he's just never going to be a specific power hitter. Like I do think there's, and I said it last year, I'll say it again. Like I do think there's more power in there, more slug in there. Whether it probably won't come out like super consistently, but maybe he's hitting more doubles. Maybe he gets a few more balls over the wall, right? I do think that's in there. But like you said, when you have a guy who's just not a power hitter by his nature, you need to have guys that can help offset that because they do like guys that hit more home runs to help offset that. Cubs don't really have that.
I always pull for Nico because he made the move from short to second without even blinking, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reasons I pull for him. But you got to have more than 7 home runs.
Yeah, well, I've said this. I beat around the bush of it a little bit this entire season. Like, going into tonight, he had a 3.6 Fangraphs WAR. Last year, he was well over a 4 WAR player by the end of the year. These are after hitting 2 home runs tonight. He'll probably be closer to a 4 WAR player when I wake up tomorrow when those stats are updated. But I'm looking at just like his by the month. He's having a great September. Like, he's not the reason that this team hasn't won series against the A's or the Rockies or whatever. He's hitting 370 with a 393 on base percentage and a 519 slugging with a 912 OPS in the month of September. Yeah. But then if you look
a lot better of a month.
If you look at all the other months, April 366 slug, May 393 slug, June 310 slug with a 626 OPS. Okay. July 336 slug, August 370 slug with a 709 OPS, 638 OPS in July. Like, his batting average isn't terrible. His lowest batting average per month this season was 230 in June, which is terrible for a guy like him who I think his walk rate has gone up every year. But also, if you're not going to slug, you have to at least – it's like the same thing we said about Madrigal. Like, for him to be a valuable player, he's got to hit – Nico's got to hit 270 and above, because it's not like he's walking 15% of his play appearances or hitting a lot of extra base hits. So – I would say for the year, like, he's been for what you should expect for someone like him, he's been fine. He's had a good season. I feel like I'm saying the same thing. I can say the same thing about half the other position players on the roster. He's a fine player. And perhaps I think a lot of us were hopeful that maybe this year he would find himself in the All-Star game, because he's such an elite defender. You cannot deny. He had another great diving play in the second base, first base hole tonight to get to make an out. He had a great, like, he makes plays that he makes plays that to some guys, like, he had a pop up out to like short right field yesterday.
Yeah.
That, like, I think a lot of guys don't make that play look as easy as he makes it. He makes on defense, he makes plays look so easy no matter what they are. Now, that's great. And you need good defense up the middle, right? However, it's been a great September, but I think we have a large enough sample size to know that he's never going to be a power threat. He's never going to be an extra base guy. He is a guy that he's a singles hitter. That to me, that is what he is. Over as far as consistency for him, he is a guy who can get on base for you at a decent clip. But when you, like you said, Luke, this team just has a lot of guys just like that, and they need more slug. So that's why I think we'll be talking a lot about this offseason about Nico being traded. It's not because I want him to actually be traded. If it was up to me, you'd keep Nico and figure out how to get some slug on this roster. But considering you got Happ and Seiya with no trade clauses, Bellinger probably opts back in, and PCA is going to be in center next year, your outfield's pretty much locked in unless some creativity somehow happens this offseason, which I think needs to happen somehow, some way. And then, I think that's why me and a lot of fans going into this offseason don't have a lot of expectations. They have to make some creative trades to improve this team. I think the team is better with Nico Hoerner on it. Brendan had a great tweet today talking about like the shortstop, second base, up the middle wars combined. And Swanson and Hoerner combined for like 7.6 WAR, which was like third in baseball behind Seager and Simeon. And then
there's Jonathan India and Ellie De La Cruz.
Yeah, Jonathan India and Ellie De La Cruz. He tweeted that. It's like we sit here and we complain about Swanson's offense and we complain about Nico not being able to hit more home runs. But at the end of the day, they provide the third highest value for second base and shortstop this year, despite the fact that they both, in my opinion, didn't have nearly as good a years as they did last year. So it's like I can side with both people when it comes to like what the Cubs should do with the roster and Nico Hoerner and whoever else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's why I don't make the big bucks to decide what's going to happen. But I do get paid to sit here and judge it.
Dionysus points out in the or as I like to call him, Dino, in the live YouTube chat, he says, "What do you do in May and June? Rest my case." And I will say, I remember early in the season us talking about something looks different about Nico's swinger approach, and it was, is he going for too much? So I don't want that either. I'd rather have him be this player and try to find the right fit around him, or make the move and shake things up this offseason. Got to tell you about our partners, though. I have to tell you about this game-changing product I use before a night out with drinks. It's called pre-alcohol. Let's face it, after a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day like I used to. I have to make a choice. Either I have a great night or I have a great next day. That is, until I found pre-alcohol. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's there to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break the byproduct down. Just remember to take ZBiotics, your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Every time I have pre-alcohol before drinks, I notice a difference the next day. I kept hearing about pre-alcohol. I wondered what it was actually like. Now I've tried it, and I believe the hype. Where were you for the GMO technology? They will release different byproducts that helps address toxic byproducts of modern living in the gut. Go to zbiotics.com, CHGO/CHGO Cubs, to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use CHGO Cubs at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. I will be using it after the Comcast Sportsnet 20 anniversary party.
Ooh, yeah.
I'll be using it beforehand.
Ooh.
That's what I'm thinking. Good time to break out the ZBiotics. I probably should hand it out to a few people. I'm not going to name names, but there's some people that should take the ZBiotic. I already know them.
It definitely helped me over the weekend. Absolutely.
Speaking of the old employer, beginning October 1st, the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox have a new home. Introducing the Chicago Sports Network, CHSN. That's CHSN. And they will broadcast more than 300 live games per year across the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox, and feature a full lineup of original Chicago-focused sports content. They're also Chicago-based, Chicago-built, and Chicago to the core. And they're bringing it to every corner of Chicago, across our 77 neighborhoods and beyond. At CHSN, Chicago comes first. Visit chsn.com for more info on how to watch the Bulls, Blackhawks, and White Sox games all season long. Going to have to find a new place. I was ready to tell him, Big Dave, you're going to have to find a new spot. Big Dave, Peck, where are you going to watch your Bulls? You're going to have to get it dialed up.
Oh, yeah.
CHSN.
Was that Big Dave?
Bulls win!
I hope he says that more than 5 times this year.
I think he will.
We'll see.
Yeah, more than 5 probably.
More than 5.
Over 5.
More than 41.
We're not going to be White Sox bad.
More than
Come on
41.
500?
Let's see. Hopefully. We can hope.
Anyway, to end on the Hoerner stuff, I was looking it up on Fangraphs, and again, these numbers aren't updated, but last year Hoerner was top 10 in hits in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
This year, going into tonight at least, he was ranked 28th. So,
and they're not like big extra base hits.
Right.
Yeah.
So I like Nico. I think he could be really valuable on this team if you had, like what Luke said, more slug. So I think any fan who thinks that he's not good, honestly, you're just not looking at the bigger picture. Hoerner is a great player that a lot of teams would love to have on their team. He's got speed. He's a great defensive player, and he finds ways to get on base. That is what he's been since 2022 when we launched. He has been the same thing for the last 3 years. I can't be mad at him about how the roster's constructed.
Yeah.
I cannot be mad at Nico Hoerner for not hitting 30 bombs or whatever this team needs. He's never done it. I can't be mad at him about it.
We just some of us wanted to see this.
Sure.
And I think it's been a little more like this.
Sure.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I still think that there's more slug in there, whether that's just more extra bases in general, a few more home runs next year, maybe the ballpark plays better than it did this year. I do think there's more slug in there, but it shouldn't be up to Nico Hoerner to bring the slug on this team. That's not who he is as a player. And if you have players around him that do bring the slug, do bring the pop, do hit the home runs, you're not worried about whether Nico Hoerner's hitting 15 home runs or 10, right? If you have other guys around him hitting a bunch of homers, you're not worried about how many he's hitting as long as he's getting on base.
If you have a Ramos Ramirez and Derek Lee and Alfonso Soriano, you're not as concerned about it. By the way, for the podcast people that are listening to this and not watching it, I was showing level graph and a graph that we were hoping was going to climb and increasingly get better and better. It's not that he hasn't gotten better as a player. I think defensively he keeps getting better. But like as Ryan was saying, I keep waiting for the power to slightly start to increase, and it really hasn't developed in his career.
Yeah.
So the other guy that was out there tonight was Javier Assad, and it wasn't a great game for him. We'll talk about him in just a little bit, but we want to put on our rose-colored glasses and explain to the people why the future is bright, brought to you by Shady Rays. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code CHGO at checkout for 35% off your polarized sunglasses. Kevin Alcantara. We were thinking Owen Casey might finally get a little playing time in the big leagues when we saw Seiya Suzuki get hurt last night. Instead, the Cubs call up 22-year-old Kevin Alcantara. He was the key piece in the Anthony Rizzo trade when the Cubs unloaded Rizzo. He only played 35 games at Iowa this year. He was mostly at AA. 35 games at Iowa, he slashed .292, .378, .469 with 5 homers. But he had a pretty good season at AA, which a lot of people sometimes say is just as close as AAA sometimes for guys to the majors as AAA. But he did pretty well at both levels.
It's better than seeing him not do well.
I totally agree. Now, if you're just going to don't please, whatever you do, please do not base everything you think about this guy on tonight's game.
Or even the
rest of the season, because PCA has shown you and other people have shown you Rizzo had a horrible first stretch with the Padres and turned into a good major leaguer. Don't worry specifically about this. What I'm happy about is that he's getting a taste. Right?
Yeah.
He's getting a little taste of the big leagues, and then he can take that as fuel into the offseason. I think it's worthwhile. I don't think they planned on doing it, but I'm glad they did it.
Yeah, Seiya got hurt. So.
Yeah,
right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, Seiya doesn't get hurt. I don't think they do it.
Probably not.
But I'm glad they did.
Yeah, Counsell said, was that Sunday? I think it was Sunday, asked about if someone like Owen Casey or Kevin Alcantara, they were planning to bring him up, and he said basically said there were no plans on doing that as of that day. Seiya getting hurt, and I guess the updates from Philadelphia are like he's day-to-day. Obviously didn't go on the IL today, but that's why Kevin Alcantara is up right now, is because of an injury, a guy that you don't know if he's going to play again. I do think, like, for me, it was kind of like whether they brought him up or not, like a week in the big leagues isn't this. It's more of like rewarding a guy a little bit. And, the AAA season ended, a little bit of a reward for having a good year. He does get to it's only a week, but you get to kind of just see how things behind the scenes work at the major league level. There's benefits to it. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I also don't, like you said, it's like, don't base everything you think about this guy off today or the next 3 games, because it's about as small a sample size as you could possibly have, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, his first major league hit, we're not going to, say he's the next Aaron Judge, but he was fast. He did score a run.
I'd love to see him in PCA race.
I think
he's athletic.
PCA probably
PCA's got him.
Yeah,
I think PCA's got him.
So Swanson hit that double in the 9th inning after he got him first, and I mean, I know there were 2 outs. I get it, but like you could see there's speed there. This is a guy in my opinion, of all the guys that came from that trade deadline in 2021, this is a guy I've thought has the highest ceiling. You just look at him. I remember seeing him in spring training. He's like 6'6", and incredibly,
6'6",
incredibly athletic, has power, and so I think he could be. I think if you just talk about reaching the highest peak of what he could be, not to say that I think it's going to happen. I hope it happens, but I'm just saying, as far as like when you just look at the guy, he could have the highest ceiling of all of the prospects that they have that we've talked about for the last 2 years. He's a guy that maybe can be that Chris Bryant guy. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I also think at the same time he has the lowest floor. If things don't work out, I think he could be that too.
He might be a bigger roll of the dice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's what I'm trying to say.
I don't know if I'd necessarily say that, just because, I mean, obviously I don't like follow the prospects super close. I do know, like, defensively, he's gotten a lot of praise for how he's improved defensively. I think that obviously raises his floor to the fact where he's like, oh, he could be a legit center fielder. He's not going to be PCA in the outfield, but he could play, like, from what you read from the prospect guys, whoever it is, that he could actually play center field at the big league level. And that obviously raises your floor just on the defensive side alone. For him, though, like, it's still going to be hard looking ahead, looking forward. It's still hard to figure out how he fits in to this, like, roster, just the construction of the roster next season, barring a trade of one of those corner guys, like Happ or Suzuki, who, as we both know, have no trade clauses, or barring an injury to someone in the outfield. Right? It's still hard to see, especially the Bellinger question is going to, depending if he opts in or not, is going to also play a factor in there. It is hard to see where Kelvin Alcantara is going to play for this team, if he's going to play for this team next year, how he fits into the construction of the roster. I think that's I don't know if it's, like, necessarily concerning, because, like, you want to have as many good players as you can, and figure it out as you go. But it is like just something that's going to be on the mind for the next however many months, of just trying to figure out where he fits in, and if he's going to be able to play on this team. Like, not that he could earn it, obviously, but just how he's going to fit into the construction and the outfield picture going into next season.
I will say this, and this is obviously more of a theory because I don't know, but the fact that they called up Alcantara instead of Casey, I think has to do with the fact that it is harder to play right field at Wrigley. And we were just talking about Alcantara's defense. And I know Bellinger could play there, but who knows if Bush will be back in the lineup tomorrow.
Bellinger could end up at first, and Alcantara could end up right.
So who knows? But I think it's telling to me that maybe Alcantara is that future right fielder, depending on whatever happens down the road with moving guys around, if they can.
Well, I don't think getting called up now, at least to me, that doesn't tell me anything about what their plans are in the future, because
I'm not saying that either.
Specifically because he was on the 40-man roster. Like, it's it's an easier move to bring up a guy already on the 40-man roster.
Sure.
I think there is still a 40-man spot open, but obviously going into the season, like, that's kind of like one of those resources you like to have available as 40-man spots. But whatever offseason moves you have to make, the fact that Kevin Alcantara is already on the 40-man, I think, is what got him the call, obviously.
Today.
Yeah.
Either way, he is the Cubs' 6th best prospect according to MLB Pipeline. He is the 69th ranked player according to MLB Pipeline.
Played in a game that the Cubs lost 9-6.
So he's another one of the top 100 guys. They lost 9-6, 69th ranked player. That's a good point. Could turn out to be a nice player.
We're hoping.
No.
There it is.
Oh, Jesus.
Sir, do we have some super chats? I got so excited about the super chats, I got choked up.
I jinxed it.
Sir Silent of the Fogs, $2. Halo 3 is 17 years old. Whack. Happy off season soon.
What does that mean?
Halo 3
video game?
Yeah.
I liked Halo 3. Halo 2 was better, I think.
I wasn't an Xbox guy.
I also had it on the regular Xbox with no online, so I don't know about the online.
I was a PlayStation 2.
That's one of the shoot 'em up games.
Yeah.
Point of view.
Yeah.
Why? I've never played it, but I'm sure
I will say that I'll probably be playing more video games this offseason, than I have this summer. Corey with a $5 super chat. I think they should open the paycheck for Alex Bregman. That would be 3 studs in the infield, depending on how you feel about Bush and Dansby.
It's a guy we talked about last offseason. Would he somehow find a way to land? And we all they wanted to try Morel and see if they could fit Morel. Mm-hmm. They wanted to see if they could take a square peg and put it in a circular hole.
The only thing that I'll just come back with is that I just find it very hard to believe that they would trade Paredes after just 2 months after trading for him.
I would be
shocked. Surprised. I would be shocked. Unless you're making a significant improvement, whether it's at third base or somewhere else, to bring in the star player of sorts. But sorry. I know we have to do a break.
The future is bright. Let me tell you about one of our partners. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by more than 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. They probably have a style in your favorite team's colors. I've seen blue for the Cubs. I wear my Shady Rays when I'm golfing, fishing, and vibing for the paparazzi. Plus, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. If you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Right now, head to shadyrays.com. Use the code CHGO. CHGO for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades that have been rated 5 stars by more than 300,000 people.
Luke, I got to tell you, before you hit the road this fall with your Shady Rays on, you got to head to Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and start your adventure there. This September, shop new, lower prices across their huge inventory during Jeep Adventure Days going on now. For a limited time, lease the new 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo for just $239 a month for 27 months, or shop over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. Let the amazing team at Ray CDJR help you during each step of your car shopping journey. With Ray's Price Promise, the numbers you're hearing now are the same prices you can expect to shop in-store and online. That's because Ray's Price Promise means no price changing, no add-ons, and no hidden fees. Since they prioritize affordability for their customers, hurry into Ray CDJR today and shop one of the Chicago area's largest inventories, then drive home with more money in your pocket than you'd expect. If you're in the market for a new vehicle, then you have to check out the team at Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, because they are the only team we recommend. Visit them today on Route 12 in Fox Lake. For more information, visit Ray CDJR in Fox Lake or raycdjr.com, serving the community since 1963.
Great people.
Great people.
Sarah says in Slack that we got the score graphic wrong. So not only did I tweet the photo, send the promotional tweet with the wrong score and tagging Luke twice, I think it just sums up the Chicago Cubs here at the end of the year and how we feel.
I put
That's right.
It was my fault. I put the wrong one. I put 5.
So I just
Don't we blame you.
I just resent the tweet.
I take back everything I said about
For
Joey.
everyone who likes us, can you at least go like the tweet so it makes it look like that we know what we're doing here? That's what I'm asking for.
I'll go back and like it.
Sorry.
Godfather, do you have internet? Find it out.
No, Ricketts. Godfather isn't here talking about Ricketts, so he's definitely
I
on the
know
internet.
Godfather's going to love this next segment.
Is he?
Because it's another person that frustrates him. Javier Assad tonight as a starter, his last start of the season for sure.
Yeah.
4 1/3 innings, 8 earned runs, 8 hits, 3 base on balls.
Before you say anything, can we just acknowledge the fact that Craig left Assad in way too long? And
yes,
the last 3 runs that are charged to him were because of, I think, Keegan Thompson, who came in relief.
I think it was Keegan, yeah.
Yes.
So, okay.
The line
Giving up
looks
5
lower.
earned, not great. It was also the Phillies. Whatever. And I've been someone who said that I don't think Assad should give you 30 starts. He's a fine number 5 starter, swingman role, whatever you want to call it. He was great in April, May, half of June, kind of struggled, hit the injured list whenever he was approaching his career high in innings, right? I think he has pitched better here in late August and most of September. Today wasn't great, but I'm just when people look at the box score tomorrow, just know that he didn't give up the last 3 technically. So, and also who cares? The game didn't matter anyway. I think he's been, for what you are paying him and what you are asking him to be, he has been awesome this year. So I think, again, at full health with this team, he's better as a swingman role.
Yeah, I mean, you said even if he is your 5th starter, I think he's fine as a 5th starter. It's kind of what we went into the season saying about Kyle Hendricks, right? If if he's your fifth starter, he can give you 5 innings and like 3 runs or less. Like you're obviously gonna take that. I think Assad is kind of the same way, but I will say like he has surprise in a way that like he just obviously today was not a good day, and he's had days like this throughout the year, but there have also been a lot of days where he just kind of comes out and like he does well, or he gets in some traffic and you feel like, oh, here it's gonna go, and you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and then it doesn't drop, and you're like I'm not like super confident with Javier Assad in the rotation. I do think like the coaching staff, Craig Counsell, Tommy Hotovy, have really been impressed with what Assad's done this year, being that first year in the big leagues of him starting every game, because the first 2 years that wasn't his role. He did honestly have the hard role of moving back and forth and not really having a defined role. This is the first year where he started from opening day to the end of the season. He had that great stretch earlier in the year when like he was near the top with the ERA
leader.
Like, no one expected it to stay there, and obviously the numbers have since like the numbers to end the year are not what they were in like April, maybe like early May. But I will say like, yeah, he's been a fine starter. Like I think he's gone out. He's thrown a bunch of quality starts. He's gone out there. He's eaten innings. This is his 29th start of the year, so he's mostly been healthy this season. It's just like he's been a fine starter, and like again, we've talked about it, like strengthening your strengths, right? Your strengths have no limits. So if they were to go out and get another starting pitcher in this offseason, depending on whether it's, I don't expect it to be a Corbin Burns, but like if it's a Max Fried or whoever, right, that they're trying to put into the rotation, Assad may be the odd man out in there in the equation, but I do think having him, even if it's just a starting pitching depth, I think you feel pretty comfortable with that, just because like he's been a fine starter. He hasn't been all-star level. He also hasn't been he's been a fine starter, and I think you're comfortable having him at least somewhere in the view of the rotation, even if he's not starting next year in the rotation.
Okay, I got a couple questions for you. One is, first of all, there's a lot of debate about Assad in the live YouTube chat. People seem to either love him or hate him. One question for Ryan is, am I crazy, or does it seem like Craig Counsell really likes Assad?
You know, he does.
He's high on Assad.
He talks about like how he's kind of taking control or taking the opportunity that was given to him, because as you recall, Jameson Taillon starting the year on the IL kind of allowed Javier Assad to start the year on to start opening day on the rotation. And Counsell's talked about how he's a guy that's kind of taken the opportunity given to him with that, and just like continues to earn starts, right? I think that's something that he said over the weekend or last week, that he goes out and he keeps earning it. Like I remember asking him before Jordan Wicks came back, and this is specifically about Jordan Wicks, how he views Jordan Wicks just based on the fact that he lost a lot of developmental time and a lot of time to compete. And Counsell, while saying that Jordan Wicks was a guy that he's still in a spot where he's kind of competing for a job, competing for starts, he also made sure to mention that Javier Assad is the guy that, because of like Jordan Wicks' injuries and all the injuries in the rest of the rotation, that Javier Assad is one of those guys that has taken advantage of the opportunity. So yeah, he does really like what Assad's done. I don't think he sees him as like a Justin Steele, Shota Imanaga level, like those guys are going to carry the rotation. But I do think he's been impressed with what Assad's done this year, and impressed that he continues to go out and, in his words, like just keeps earning it.
So Charlie in the chat says he was really good in the first half, and then we relied on him too much. His arm gassed out. Craig mismanagement and mismanaged him, and he's been rough the past couple months. My rebuttal to that is the fact that Ben Brown, Cade Horton got hurt, and those guys have higher ceilings than Javier Assad. And what else are they supposed to do then? That's the point. That's the point that I'm making, is that the guy has stepped in and has done as well as you could have asked for in a season where the starting rotation, or just the pitching staff in general, has had a ton of injuries. He is giving you everything you could have asked for. Everything. And I'm someone who's not high on him starting every fifth day. That's the entire point. That's all the entire point I was trying to make.
I get what you're saying. You're exactly like, people are saying, hey, look at the results. He gave up 8 runs tonight. He's had a bad 2 months. He's not the guy that wasn't going to get in. You're saying listen, he's doing stuff that they shouldn't even be asking him to do because of the injuries. He's being put in positions. It's like asking Nico to bat cleanup.
Yes.
He also hasn't had a bad 2 months. Like his August was 6 starts and he had a 3.16 ERA.
I
said that earlier.
I actually buy what you're saying.
I said that he was finishing the season strong after struggling in June and July.
In some ways, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you are closer to what people in the chat are saying. They just don't realize it.
Yeah.
What you're saying is on the next, at least what I think you're saying, and I sort of agree with this, if there is a next great Cubs team, and it seems to be taking longer than we hoped, if there is one and Assad is on the team, I think he will be in the bullpen for that.
Yes.
Like it's possibly be the fifth starter, but if they actually turn this around and turn it into a 95, 90-win team, it's way more likely, in my opinion, that Horton slides into these spots and starts filling a rotation, that they add a guy in the offseason, that Ben Brown slides in and becomes a guy, and then Assad can be useful as a swing guy or occasional start and a potentially good middle of the bullpen guy that you depend on to get some
cover some innings, some higher leverage,
which
innings.
is still valuable and would still make him a great addition to the team when they add him.
And that's what I've been saying. Like, you're not going to have 5 aces in the rotation. Like I don't know how many teams have ever had 3. You know, you're not going to have 5 aces in the rotation. Not saying so. Assad's never going to be. Like, he's not the pitcher that Justin Steele and Shota Imanaga were this year. Like, he's just not. And even if he is in the bullpen, like I said earlier, having him as rotation depth, because we saw how much the depth was needed this year, and even the depth kind of was wiped out by injury, right? They didn't have a lot of depth over the last couple months because of injuries as far as the rotation goes. So to have him as a depth piece at the very least, like, you like that. You think, even if he's not starting 30 times a year, I think you still feel comfortable with Assad as, like, at the very least, a spot starter, like you said, swingman, but a guy that can come in and make starts when needed. The role he had the first 2 years of his career and did pretty well in that role. Yeah. As hard as it is to go back and forth.
And then my final point too is, you remember in the golden era when things were good, but also we had a lot of issues with developing pitching.
Yeah.
All right. You know, I know he helped them win the World Series, but remember they paid John Lackey, like old-ass John Lackey, a ton of money
come here for a
2
haircut.
Years. He was fine, I guess, the first year, but 2017 was a disaster. He led baseball in home runs he gave up. Like, my thinking when it comes to Assad is someone like what John Lackey's role was with the Cubs then. Like, the amount of time, like Brett Anderson, that instead of signing a guy off the street, like a veteran guy like that, if you're able to develop guys like Assad, who, again, before last year, none of us even really knew who he was. He wasn't even like a top-tier prospect in the system. The fact that they have like developed him into someone who can do what he has done for a large portion of the season is an incredible development. This organization 7-8 years ago could have never done anything like this. The only thing, like the closest thing they did to that was Kyle Hendricks. Right? Yeah. So all I'm saying is, again, that, yeah, he's not an ace like Ryan said, but he's been able to eat innings for you. He saved you during many portions of the season. It's not his fault this team isn't going to make the playoffs. No. The only reason he was in the rotation to start the year is because Tyone was hurt. Sure, yeah, he had some bad stretches in June and July.
And again, he's like, if he's your 5th starter, like, I think that just kind of comes with the territory, right? Like, you're not
I just think it's better. I think it's a better way to run the organization if you're able to develop a guy to be that role of a Brett Anderson in 2017, who didn't even make it to the All-Star break, by the way, or John Lackey, who was older at the time, and sure, maybe he brought positive things to the clubhouse that helped them win in 16, no doubt, for sure. But you're basically asking him the same thing of what you're asking Assad this year, in my opinion, like to be a back of the rotation guy and eat innings for you. And the only thing, and I've said this a ton about him as a starter, is the fact that he hasn't been able to really go into the 6th inning a lot. He'll be able to give you a strong 5, but if he's your 5th starter more often than not, then
how many 5th starters are doing that anyway? Right. I'll ask you this. We sat here, and real quick, we sat there last year, probably about this time, saying Wicks, Assad, Wisniewski. One of them's going to be the 5th starter. Who had the best season of the 3?
Ended up being Assad.
It's 100% Javier Assad, even if it's finishing on the downside.
Add Tyler Chatwood to that list of guys, too. It was a waste of money.
Tell us about our friends who make you a lot of money.
Oh, Prize Picks, man. They've helped me make some money. All right. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. And guys, this is the last weekend. On Sunday. I know it's been hard watching the Bears play offense, but you know what? Caleb Williams has gotten that one passing yard in every single game. I know game 1 was kind of tough. That one was tough, but he still did it. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right. Only needs 1 yard throwing the ball. 1 pass to my guy Cole Kmet, right? To get you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. It's the last one, all right? Don't miss this deal on Prize Picks because it's gone when September ends, to quote Green Day, all right?
Make me out when September ends.
Download Prize Picks app today and use code CHGO and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CHGO on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Free $50. Just have some fun on Prize Picks. Right. Have a reason to want to watch the Chicago Bears play football. Because right now I need a lot of them.
But speaking of Bears, we got a lot going on. We have the Bears tailgate coming up on Sunday, which is Wabash and Cermak. Good times. We have barbecues included in the deal. All the Miller, Blue Moon, all that stuff that you want to drink is included, right? And the vibes, just hanging out. It's
vibes are
from when
included.
We started doing this to what it is now. It just continues to grow. The family continues to get bigger.
Absolutely.
They had
and
well
it continues
over,
to get more fun.
We had well over 150 people at the first tailgate.
Oh, yeah.
I saw pictures. It looked like it was like basically the Cubs World Series parade.
Yeah.
Every
tailgate. Like that's how
because there's other tailgates going on there too. And sometimes they try to filter in. Don't try to do that. You got to have the ticket. I will say we've also, every time I've been to it, I don't know, I've been to 6 or 7 of them probably. There's always somebody internationally there. There's always somebody from New Zealand or, hey, I'm here from London for the game. You're like, what?
Right.
So it doesn't matter where you're at. If you're listening to this podcast, you're welcome. You're looking for a place to go to hang out before the game, this is the place. Speaking of London, we also have the London trip. Sarah's going because she's a big shot.
Yeah, more important than us.
And you can we're not selling the plane tickets to go with us anymore, but we're still selling the events in London.
Yeah, so
where we'll be doing our live shows.
Yeah, we're doing a pregame big tailgate in London before the game. We have a boat cruise you can still get tickets to. There's a couple other smaller events you can go to, and so those are all available with truefantravel.com.
Oh yeah,
right. Because lots of Bears fans are going over. If they didn't get in on our deal, they're still going to want to have an itinerary of what to do.
Right.
We basically planned it out for you. Hang out with us.
And there's a lot of fans in London, too. A lot of Bears fans that watch the Bears show, so they can always meet up with us.
There we go.
And a lot of Bears fans are Cubs fans, so if you're wondering why we're saying this, it's because Chicago
baby
sports.
Bears.
Where's Rachel been, our Cubs fan from London?
She hasn't been in here in a while.
She's bailed on us. I bet she shows
She's probably
up for this.
very tuned out on this team. I don't blame her.
She's been angry, tuned out a little bit. I don't blame her. And the Friday 120 Club coming up, the final one of the season as well.
My favorite part of the Friday 120 Club year 1 was the friends we made along the way. The year 1 of Friday 120 Club.
It was great. May never have happened.
Legitimately was the friends we made along the way.
May never have happened if I didn't suggest the name Friday 120 Club.
You did really save it.
You did.
Credit to you. I
was
don't give
hanging
you a
on by
lot
a
of credit,
thread.
but that I will give you
I
credit.
was hanging
for
on
that.
by a thread, and I just walked in. I'm like, why don't you call it the Friday 120 Club?
You pulled that off.
Boom.
Cody pulled off the breaking news about Abrams that went worldwide, and I predicted the 24th day for
No, you
Cody
didn't.
Bellinger
You
to sign
did
on,
not.
and I also predicted the right amount of wins last
Lisa
year.
You
still
predicted
broke
it 3
first.
times. That's like saying
David
know.
Snyder says Assad was ASS today. I don't like to swear on this podcast. When he gives up
Do you?
runs early, he is bad the whole game. Counsell left him in way too long, and that lost us the game. Assad looks like a 4th or 5th inning, 4 or 5 inning guy.
Yeah, I
That's
mean-
it. But that's still
I do think he
that's
left
what we're
him in
saying. That's
today.
probably
Yeah,
true, but that's valuable
Yeah.
on the right
Sure,
team.
yeah. You're making the
Are
point.
you talking about the 4 or 5 inning guy?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. He might just be a reliever, but on this team, they asked him to try and do more, and sometimes he was good at it, sometimes he wasn't. But at least he was there to do it.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, also the point about him leaving him and Counsell leaving Assad in too long, like, I would think that if these games mattered as far as playoff potential or potential playoff, positioning games, whatever, I would think he would have taken him out earlier. The fact that they don't, maybe saving some arms that could just at least finish out the year. You wear another inning or two.
They did have a bullpen game.
I will say
on
in,
Monday,
in
so.
general, yes, he probably left them in too long. Does it ultimately matter just where they're at in the season? Not really.
No, not really. The only thing that really matters from this game is we got to see Kevin Alcantara. I'm happy to see that Isak Paredes had a 4-for-5 night.
Wow.
Right? Nico Hoerner hit the 2 homers.
Where were you?
Which, whatever, but also I'm happy to see him have some success and be good in September.
Yeah.
Right? And what else? I mean, those are like the 3 things that highlight this game for me,
In 2 years, does this replace the sequel as This Day in Cubs History? The Nico Hoerner 2-homer game where the Cubs lost in Alcantara's debut. Does that replace the Esteban Quiros game, the sequel? September 25th, 2022, when Esteban Quiros, batting second in the Cubs lineup, went 2 for 3 with 2 runs, an RBI, and 2 walks. And Adrian Sampson went 6 innings and gave up 1 run.
No.
So I guess when
it's a great performance at the plate.
When Jed says we've closed the gap, okay, in that way you have closed the gap.
I'll
give you that. In that way,
your starting pitcher from the day.
Yeah, you probably have closed the gap a little bit.
Mentioned,
even though the results aren't that far off.
You mentioned Adrian Sampson, and I remember how going into last season, at least going into the spring,
yes,
we were all kind of high on him, and then he got hurt. He got hurt, and then we never saw him again. Whatever.
Schwarmer.
Matt Schwarmer.
Bobblehead still sitting there just waiting for somebody to buy it.
At FOCO, yeah. But, yeah.
Which is lamer in Major League Baseball in the last, 48 hours? I mean, the Sox are going to take the cake. I don't know. Are they losing
They're winning
still?
right
They're
now.
winning.
They're
Is
gonna
that
rob
lame,
us.
though?
They're going to
The
rob
Sox
us
are
of
winning
this.
3-2.
Are they going to boo again when the final out's made?
Probably.
Of course they're going to boo, yeah.
Those fans want to be part of history if they're going to go.
You're not going there. You're not going. Sell the team is what they've been chanting the last 2 days. And okay, you want lame things. Lame is taking away the bags from the fans that brought bags to wear over their heads. That's been lame.
Lame.
That is pretty lame.
Lame is tonight's no-hitter getting broken up by a bunt. Is that more lame, or is it the Pirates?
It was a perfect game, by the way.
Perfect game. Or is it the Pirates DFAing Rowdy Tellez before he gets his bonus? What was the bonus again?
$200,000.
4 more plate appearances, I think.
Yeah, and you needed 4 more plate appearances.
They got rid of him to save $200,000. I got to tell you, if I'm another player and I see that, I'm talking behind their back. Those cheap SOBs.
It's not a very good look at, even if it's so. I think unless the guy was a turd. Which I've never heard that about Rowdy
I haven't
Tellez.
either. I'm just saying if he was a turd in the clubhouse and you could stick it to him, then I would have no problem with that. But if he's been trying for you all season, bad move.
I think the what's it called? The reasoning that was given, obviously the public facing reasoning, was that it allows a couple guys who they think could be part of their future, part of their 2025 plans, some opportunities to play. Whether that's the truth or not, the optics obviously don't look great. And if it truly was to save $200,000, then the Pirates, as we know, are like one of the cheaper franchises. Like that's just like their reputation around baseball.
They're still making money.
Yeah, they're a Major League Baseball team.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is like they already have this reputation as one of the cheaper teams in baseball. To do this to save $200,000 for a guy who's, like we said, we've never heard anything about him being bad in the clubhouse, to being potentially a guy that younger guys coming up can look to for advice, a guy who's been around for a little bit, a guy who's tried hard for your team all year, to do that, to say if it is the truth is to save $200,000, that's a bad look in my opinion. And I would say to your original question that's lamer than bunting to break up a perfect game.
Cam says the Cubs did the same thing with Hector Neris.
I disagree.
I think they could not pitch Hector Neris again.
Yeah. I think regarding Tellez, the bigger story from it is how it looks to players on the team and to potential free agents.
Yes.
Like, what is Paul Skeens thinking after that happens? It's like, do I want to pitch for this organization long term?
Is this organization going to give me money when it's my time?
Yeah, like, should I
Probably
even,
no.
like, they're going to if the Pirates are smart, they go to him now and try to get some sort of contract extension done, kind of like what the Royals did with Bobby Witt Jr. I know he's a position player, but, I mean, Paul Skeens he's had an incredible rookie season to a point, for me at least, to think you need to do whatever you can to keep this guy around for a really long time. So to me, what it looks like, it's like, will they even consider doing that? And then also, if you're a potential free agent, like, why would you want to go to an organization like that? That all said, though, we see it all across baseball. I was listening to Jeff Passan on Pat McAfee today, and he brought up an example before the season. I think it was J.D. Davis he mentioned, who went to arbitration against the Giants, and he won. But then after he won, that's when the Giants signed Matt Chapman to play third base. And so I think that led to him being cut. And so he only made $1.5 million this year instead of like the 6.9 he was supposed to make. So he ended up losing like over $5 million because he didn't start the season with the Giants or whatever.
But you're talking millions versus
$200,000.
$200,000,
which to us is a lot of money.
And, of course,
and
so
the Giants
shouldn't be.
And the Giants do spend money. They've tried to spend money in recent years, right? And they just haven't got the guy to sign the paper, right? They could have had Correa. They end up passing because of the whole like leg issue, not passing the physical thing. They tried to get Aaron Judge, and John Heyman called him Arson Judge, and they ended up going back to the Yankees. Like, Arson whatever. It's a different scenario. The Pirates for sure haven't spent any real money in a really long time. So I just think it, in general, is just a bad look on the organization in terms of, like, if you're – like, the Pirates should be a team that should be buying – they should be, like, I'm kind of afraid of what they could do this offseason, but not because they're the Pirates. But they're a team that, to me, are a few decent players away from being a real thing. They have solid pitching. They have some decent players with Cruz and Hayes.
Say it every year. Every year we say it.
Yeah, that's true.
Cubs lose 9-6 to the Phillies in what will always be remembered as the Nico Hoerner game. 2 home runs, and the Cubs still lost. Or Kelvin Alcantara's first major league game.
Yeah, this will not.
Major league hit.
To me, it will not be the Nico Hoerner game. He's had.
You'll remember it as Alcantara's debut.
Yes, and I say this because in some ways it's kind of disrespectful to Nico Hoerner because he's been big in so many other games that actually matter.
But he's never hit 2 home runs in a game.
That's fair. That's fair.
And we hope that Alcantara's a big enough star that we will say that was his first game. That's when he made his major league debut. We are back tomorrow at 2:30. 2:30 is the podcast time because it's an off day tomorrow. Then don't forget the Friday 120 Club at Wrigley Field. Buy your tickets, head to Murphy's, and we will see you there. Cubs lose 9-6. Thanks for watching. Thanks to everybody in the live YouTube chat. We appreciate that. Good luck to Joey in his future adventures.
Bye, Joey.
Bye, Joey. We're going to miss you. Your scent, your musk, your hard work.
Show Joey was an all-time moment in this show.
We'll miss the time that he saber-toothed the beer right here on the set.
Yep.
Thanks, Joey. Thanks to you for watching. Until next time, don't forget, fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.